Oh my gosh, this is quite the drive. Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing something absolutely on my bucket list. We are going to the top of Pikes Peak. Now, if you have seen my channel before, you know that I have been part of the way up to Pikes Peak whenever I did the Manitou Incline. Oh my gosh, talk about struggle bus. That was me, and if you haven't seen that video, definitely go and check it out. In fact, if you want to go to the top of Pikes Peak, there are 3 ways that you can get there. You can hike it, you can drive it, or you can take the cog. Today I wanted to share with you the drive up to the top of Pikes Peak because I think that that's something that is accessible to us all. Now, this isn't your typical mountain drive. In fact, you have to go through a toll booth just to come up here, and today I spent $15 to do this, but it's worth it, and you'll see why as we go. It's beautiful, and Pikes Peak actually holds a very special place in history, but we'll talk about that a little later on in the video. Now, when we went through the toll booth, they told us a couple things. No air conditioner on the way up, and we need to gear down on our way down. Not using the air conditioner will actually keep us from overheating because this is a constant climb. So the windows are down as a result, but it's a beautiful day, so that's perfect. And gearing down whenever we're coming down will keep us from having to ride our brakes or pump our brakes several times, which will heat them up and ultimately cause us problems. So is this exciting? Absolutely. Is this a little bit dangerous? Possibly. I don't know. We haven't got to the top yet. I have noticed as we're driving by that the views are amazing. There are several pull-offs, and we're going to be stopping at some of those, and there are actually Bigfoot sightings here. What? But enough with all of that. It is time for us to get back on this road to the top of Pikes Peak. Now, as you kind of go up Pikes Peak Highway, you see these little signs off to the right-hand side. And each one of them has a little different graphic, but then it says mile marker on it. Right now, we're only at mile marker 6. This is a very long drive to the top with tons of points of interest. Like this one right here. This is the North Slope Recreation Area, and it's right next to the highway that we're driving up. And right beyond this sign is actually something really cool that I'm about to show you. And this is why it's worth paying the 15 bucks. It's more than just Pikes Peak. There's all sorts of other cool stuff while you're coming up here. So we have these amazing like viewpoints where you can see like the reservoir down here. We have the drive itself, which is gorgeous. And then we have all these recreational areas also. So you can definitely spend a lot of time doing this highway. Now, just across from the viewpoint that we were just at, there's actually the Crystal Reservoir gift shop. We're gonna go inside and see what it's all about, but also explore some of this out here because what's that back there? What is it? There's a Sasquatch. Okay, we definitely needed to stop in there. I was able to get a drink, which I just needed something a little cool right now. I have water in the van, but it's always nice to have something a little different. Also, we found our magnet, which I'm going to be sharing with you in a little while, and something else super, super cool, which tells the story of historic Pikes Peak. But that's going to come along as we get a little closer to the summit. For now, let's go enjoy this outdoor space and see what we can find. Wow, look at this, guys. This tells us why it gets cooler and cooler the higher that we get. It talks about how whenever we start out at the bottom of Pikes Peak, that it actually is not that bad, but the cooler it gets, the higher up that we're getting. So by the time that we get to the top, we may need a jacket. And I will say this, most of the people I've talked to have asked me already, do you have like a little pullover or something? It gets kind of cold up there. And they've also said, don't worry, it's not supposed to snow today. Mind you, it is a warm day. So the fact that they're telling me it's not supposed to snow means that it typically snows even on the warm days? Something else outside of this is actually a little nature trail, and as you go along it tells you a little bit more about the geology and nature that is surrounding us. So for example, this talks about the aspen trees right here, and each one of them, as you can see, is numbered, so you can go through and find all of the different numbers along the way. And then just over here in this open area is actually where they do ranger talks. That's super cool too. And like I say, always check out the signs. You never know what kind of like hidden gems you're going to find. And yeah, looks like there's quite the path of those here. Let's look at a few of them. Okay, we made it back to the van, and you know I have this little license plate theming going on between this and then my Travel More pillow, which is kind of back there and upside down. Well, I thought it was only fitting to carry that on with my Pikes Peak magnet. And this shows that it has the Pikes Peak, Colorado Springs, and then the elevation on it. I liked some of the others, but they didn't have the elevation, so this one is the one that's coming home with me. And I think it's gonna go right here next to Dinosaur National Monument. Just a little side note, as we're gaining in elevation, my ears keep popping, so maybe bring some gum. That really helps with altitude change, so it may be able to be something that would help you. I'm just kind of missing my gum right now. Would have been nice. We found our way to the halfway picnic area. So here we actually have some restrooms if you need them, and then also some cool interpretive signs to tell us a little bit more. We're halfway, guys. We're halfway. So like this, we get to learn about the elk that are in the area and then how to spot a boy from a girl. Now this is a bull elk, and these guys can get really territorial. They also make this really interesting bugling sound, which if you ever hear it, you can never unhear that noise because you will know that that is a male elk right there. And then these two right here are actually a cow elk and then one of the calves. And if you go down here, it says that calves are actually born in late May or early June. So at this point in time, the mamas are aggressive too. But those aren't the only critters. Look, they actually have black bears here too. And it says here that they actually normally are like a cinnamon to dark brown color, and they stand about 3 feet tall at their shoulder, mostly eating the berries, nuts, and leaves. But before winter, that's when they go on a spree, making sure to stock up, eating almost 20,000 calories a day. And then lastly, we look at this one right here, and this one might not be the most common of thoughts whenever you come out to this area, but a porcupine. It says that they have between 15,000 and 30,000 little needle sharp quills, so don't mess with this guy. And then also at the halfway point, we have this map. It shows us kind of where we came in over here, and then that first stop that we made. Now we are at approximately 9,931 feet of elevation, so we have a ways to go, but it looks like there are a couple more stops. So the summit is going to be a 14er. Now, of course, Colorado is known for their 14ers, and this one is one of the easier ones to access because of the highway that we have here. So this makes it much more accessible to you and me, even if we don't feel like hiking. But again, I did mention that there are a couple of other ways to get here, including a hike and also the COG. Now, if you've never seen the COG Railway before, it is amazing. The only reason I didn't decide to take it today is because it is a little bit more expensive. It costs $15 for me to go up the mountain in my van, but it costs about $70 to go up on the COG. Now, you do get a completely different viewpoint, so keep that in mind, and we might do that on a different adventure. Time for another amazing stop, and as you can see, this is a popular corner to say the least. So there's a little bit of an area here that you can hike down, and we can actually see the reservoir in its entirety, and it's gorgeous. Just coming up the mountain, being able to see it, it was just taking my breath away. So now we're gonna see if we can't get a better view for you guys. Do you see that in the distance? Isn't that pretty? Oh, but wait, we can do a little bit better than that. Let's hike down just a little bit further here. We're getting our steps in today. And wow, everything just kind of opens up and it's gorgeous. Now, I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but down here is actually the roadway that we came in on earlier. And then in the distance, of course, you can see the beautiful reservoir. And if you want an even better look, for only 25 cents, you too can get a better look. We have made it to our next stop along the Pikes Peak Highway, and as you can see behind me over here, there's actually another place that we can go inside. There's also restrooms, and there is a ranger. So instead of going there first, I think we're actually going to take this little path that's straight out of the secondary parking lot and see where this goes. I'm the king of the world! Okay, after checking out that little overlook area, let's go and find out what this shop is about. We already picked up our magnet, our postcards, and a drink. So, will he entice us to get anything else? I don't know. From what I've been told, each stop has something slightly different. Yeah, they want you to stop at each and every one of them. This one is definitely different because there is a cafe here. Let's go see what they have. Well, normally it looks like they have these kind of things between Thursday and Sunday, but I am here on a Tuesday, so that doesn't do us any good today. But that is good to know if you're here on the Thursday through Sunday time, because you can eat actually on the highway, which is kind of cool. And they have an outdoor seating area also, which is really nice, with another one of those little magnifiers. So super, super cool. Now, while we're here, I want to talk about this sign right here, which also relates to the postcards that we picked up. Did you know that since 1916, they've actually been having a race up Pikes Peak? Let's talk about that again. A race up Pikes Peak. The same thing that is challenging Dimples to go up at like 30 miles per hour. And they are racing in these tiny little race cars. This is insane. But this is the original what was race car at that time. So they didn't even have all the protections of the modern day ones. But as we kind of move across, you can see what the more modern looking race cars that they're doing the same thing look like. This was the open wheel champion in 1996. He made the entire corridor in 11 minutes and 25 seconds. Now, the drivers are doing a slightly different course than we are driving currently. We are driving the full, like 20 miles almost, and they only do like 12 and a half, but still, can you imagine a race car on Pikes Peak? I would have a heart attack. Now, for most of us, this sign is more us right here, just the casual sightseers. It says here that people have been going up Pikes Peak since 1889 as tourists, and actually the early risers could get up there on the Colorado Midland train to Cascade. There were actually horse-drawn carriages that awaited the passengers, and then with the introduction of the cars, this of course became a popular tourist route. Now, the cog that I was telling you about actually was here before the highway. The cog got here in 1891. The highway wasn't even introduced until much later in 1935. So the highway that we're driving on today has been in some form or fashion here since 1935, which is really wild because before that it was much more primitive. I can't imagine going 20 miles up the road on a washboard. I just can't do it after traveling some of the other mountain roads. And so, wow, what an asset this highway actually is. Now, this is a photo from the 1920s, and this is just a casual drive up the washboardy looking mountain. And then again here, tourists dressed up for an open air ride in 1926, and this was actually taken here at Glen Cove. A couple more signs to check out over in this luncheon area, and then we're gonna hit the road again and see what else we can find. Look here, guys, these are some of the critters that we might find, and this is just reminding us again, like at most sites, do not feed the little critters. There are over 300,000 people who travel up the mountain every year, and if we all stopped and fed them, that would be very bad for them. So, a couple little things here. They have the yellow-bellied marmot. I hope that we see one. I love marmots, they're so cool. And then the least chipmunk. We've been seeing these hopping across the road the entire trip through Colorado. Okay, so as you can see, Pikes Peak has been inspiring the mild and wild for quite some time. And that includes our adventure here today, which I would consider a lot more tame. But we're not finished yet. We are off to the summit. At mile 15, I am pretty sure we are driving on top of the world right now. This is insane. And I can see so far below us, it is crazy. Okay, this pull-off looks very promising, and actually whenever I came in the gate, this was the one that the woman told me I have to stop at. It's her favorite one because of the views. So let's go find out what this little stop up here has to offer. Wow, definitely can understand why this is her favorite. It's so amazing. You can see the roadway over here, the mountain as it kind of sloughs off, these huge boulders. And what's between this right here, breathtaking. Very careful on our way down here. In fact, we're going to use the rock as kind of like a handrail, just to stay safe. Okay, there we go. Wow. Gorgeous views. This is probably my favorite view so far on this highway. It's so amazing. Okay, slightly more wind blown, but off to the summit now. I think that's the last stop that we have until we get up there. So enjoy this ride. We are very, very close now, like almost there. And a couple of other things as we approach the summit. They do ask that you don't linger for a really long time at the visitor center because currently they're still doing construction. So keep that in mind, but we're still gonna check it out because it's a brand new visitor center. Now we have made it to the top, and as you can see, you're greeted by the instantaneous construction. They're doing a project up here that is actually going to make it amazing, even more so. But in the meantime, you know, it's just kind of, it is what it is, and it's going to be here for a while. But we have made it to the summit, and we are almost to the visitor center. They're kind of directing us as to where to go to park, so that's what we're doing right now. See that person right up there? That's their whole job right now, is just to figure out how to fit all of us spectators to the mountain up here. Okay, we made it up to the top, and the guy definitely told us a few things that we're gonna have to know when we go down. But as of right now, let's go explore. From out here, we can see everything. You can see for miles and miles and miles. It is gorgeous. And you can see kind of how the mountain itself is different in different places. Like right here by us, it looks like it was almost turned up on its side. And then over here, it's more like flat and how it's supposed to be. Now, whenever you do hike up, they call the last little stretch the Boulder Field. And I can see why from up here, definitely, because it's all boulder. Look how crazy this looks though. It's just like so strange between there and then this side over here. Night and day. Absolutely worth coming up here, I must say. The drive itself is challenging to say the least, but wow, it is breathtaking. And there is no view that is a bad view from up here, and with all of the platforms that they're building now, like all through here, it's worth the construction. It definitely is worth it, because now you can come and get like almost a 360 view of the summit. And I am just normally having so many words, but right now the only thing I can come up with is beautiful, which leads me to something we're about to talk about. Remember how I said the cog comes up here? Well, this is the platform for the cog. So we're actually walking beside it to another viewpoint, which is along the hiking portion. I just kind of want to show you what the hiking portion looks like. It is intense, to say the least. Speaking of the cog, it looks like we had perfect timing. This is actually the track that the cog comes up, right next to the main visitor center. And right over here is kind of where we were a while ago. So now you can walk down a little bit on the hiking trail. Again, you can take the cog or you can drive. Now, just to give you a heads up, this is part of the hiking area. It is pretty unforgiving, lots of boulders, and definitely a challenge. You can see some people out here going and taking pictures on the boulders, but this right here would be the last part of the trail if you were hiking up from the bottom. Now, most people do not hike Pikes Peak in one day. Most people who take the trail actually lay over in the Middle Point Camp, which is near the bar trail. So that's just something to kind of consider if you want to be more adventurous. I'm showing you all the different methods that you can come up here, but now let's go check out that new visitor center. It is calling my name. We have now made it to the original Summit House. So long before we had this amazing state-of-the-art visitor center that we now have, there was this small Summit House where you could come up here and seek a few of the comforts, but not very many. And they've actually left this portion of it intact and secured it so you could still see what it was like to come to the original Summit House. Now, remember how I told you I wanted to show you some very special postcards that they have available? These are actually some of those, and it's really cool to see what these buildings might have looked like at one point in time. So I wanted to come up here and share this with you all. Look at this. This right here was actually one of the race cars. Took 3 hours and 22 minutes. But this is actually at, I believe, this building. And this one also, look right here. This is what the original Summit might have looked like. There's the cog, and then there's the Summit House, and then they had a little observation tower. They didn't have all the elaborate walkways that we have now, but this would have been taken in about the same position almost as we're standing right now here. I also wanted to show one of the cars right here. This is pretty cool. This is at one of the pull-off areas, so kind of neat. And then this one, this would have been at the beginning of the Pikes Peak Highway, probably where the toll station is now. But it says here, we rent overcoats. I can see why. It is definitely more chilly up here than it was when we started our day today. Now you can understand why those postcards were such a neat pickup at that first stop. And with that, we're gonna go inside the new Visitors Center, and I am so excited. A lot to explore inside after we get away from the chaos outside. So we have our orientation map, a room inside here, a staircase that's behind us leading to something else, and even a cafe. Now inside this display there are all sorts of cool things that you can find out about the Pikes Peak area, from the people and the races that we already talked about, to the geology, the mountains themselves, why they're so significant, the animals that live here, and so much more. So let's just go look at a few exhibits, but I'm not going to show you everything because I want you to come and see it yourself. Look at this. This is what the cog originally looked like. Of course, we just saw the more modern cog that's been reopened recently, but look at this. It was much smaller, much different experience. This display is called A Year on the Summit, and it has a little wheel that we can turn. And as we turn the wheel, it actually shows us different days, and we can go forward or backwards in the day. And it shows us kind of the traffic that comes through on a regular basis. Look at this, wow. Now along this back wall, there's actually a timeline of all of the cool things that have happened along the lifespan of Pikes Peak. So what we're gonna do is just highlight a few of those. And I think that we'll start with today. Today, it shows that hundreds of thousands of people come here each year, and it's America's best known mountain. I also wanna focus on 2011. Right here. It says in 2011 that the entirety of the road was actually finally paved. Now, can you imagine? We were talking about how bumpy and rocky it would be to come up, and then all of those like drop-offs and things like that. Well, in 2011, that's very recent. The highway was finally completed after it was began in the 50s. This picture and these shoes are actually something very, very neat. This was from the first Pikes Peak Marathon, and bodybuilder Monty Wolford actually won the race in 5 hours and 39 minutes. And there he is crossing the finish line. Another cool photo right here. This one is from December 31st, 1922. It says here that 5 Colorado Springs men, including Fred Barr, who the Barr Trail's named after, actually made the first ascent up to launch fireworks from the top of Pikes Peak. And this is another picture of Mr. Barr right here. In 1921, he actually began the Barr Trail. Now, the Barr Trail is the connecting trail to the incline. So last time that I was up here and I did the incline, I actually hiked down the Barr Trail. Very, very cool. And a lifesaver, because they don't recommend you hike back down the incline once you make it. It's very dangerous. Now, remember that race that we were talking about? It says here that the race was actually used as an advertisement for the actual highway. Now, they did a lot of different kinds of stunts like this to promote highways and tourism and things like that at that time, but this by far has to be the craziest, most harebrained, and awesome thing I have seen. Now, remember how I kept getting tongue-tied and thinking that the only word I could come up with was beautiful? Well, maybe there's a reason for that. This woman right here's name is Katherine Lee Bates, and she actually visited the summit of Pikes Peak. And from that trip, she developed America the Beautiful, the song. She found it to be one of the most prolific experiences in her life. The colors sang to her, the beauty just abounded, and she too was taken aback. But she could find her words, and she put them into one of the most iconically known songs. Now, that happened in 1893, and we still have a lot of timeline to go. So many cool things have come from Pikes Peak, and I think that's why as we come here and make our own adventure, we can have our own cool experience also. And so that's why you have to come. Now, in the earliest portions of this timeline, it talks about the early people and also how the Rockies actually were formed. And I think it's pretty neat because it gets to show you some of the petroglyphs and then also the points that they found here, and then how we went from this to the discovery stage, and then on and on and on. And now up the stairs we go to see what else we can find. Of course, now we know that not only did they ascend, but they conquered. And now, as a result, we have this amazing place that we can come. And I have thoroughly enjoyed sharing this adventure with you all today. It has been a magnificent, amazing, jaw-dropping, and beautiful ride to the top. And then seeing all of this, just the cherry on top. Now we're gonna go back down. I'm gonna stop off at a couple of those little places and just kind of show you what it looks like. If you've enjoyed coming along with me today on this adventure, make sure that you like this video, subscribe, and check out all of my future content. I upload every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I have tons of cool adventures coming your way. But till next time, guys, bye!